Get off my porch, Dad, now, or I'm calling the cops. Emily's voice tore through the icy February air like a whip, sharp and venomous. Her fingers clenched so tightly around her phone I half expected it to shatter. She wasn't bluffing, her thumb hovered as if she'd already punched in 911. For a moment I just stood there, stunned. My own daughter, my flesh and blood, looking at me like I was some unwanted intruder. Behind her, the glow of that absurdly large flat screen Tyler bought last month flickered across a living room, stuffed with luxuries they couldn't possibly afford. My heart hammered not from the cold, but from the sheer audacity of it. I didn't beg. I didn't demand answers. I didn't ask why the little girl I'd raised to be respectful was now threatening to sic the police on me. Instead, I gave her a slow, deliberate smile, the kind that hides fire behind calm. The kind that says, "You have no idea what's about to happen next." I stepped down from the porch, each crunch of my boots against the frozen concrete, ringing like a drumbeat in my ears. My hand went to my pocket, pulling out my phone. One swipe, and David Carter's name lit up my screen, the trusted real estate broker who had once sat with me for hours, walking me through Emily's property taxes when she was short on cash. "Frank? Been a while," he answered, his voice warm, unaware of the storm on my end. "What's going on?" I kept my gaze fixed on that house. The manicured shrubs I'd paid for, the heavy curtains hiding a life built partly on my 30 years of overtime shifts. The mortgage I'd co-signed so my daughter and her gambling addict husband could have a home they didn't deserve. "I need a market analysis on a property," I said evenly. "This address, today." There was a pause. "You thinking about selling?" "Not thinking," I said, my voice low, hard. "Doing. Because if they wanted to run this place into the ground, I was going to make damn sure I got there before they did. They thought I'd leave in humiliation. They thought I'd swallow the insult and slink away quietly. But they forgot something critical, something they're about to regret. My name is still on the mortgage. If this story touched your heart, press 1 inch the comments. If you think it could have been handled differently, press 2. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? My name is Franklin Miller Frank to most. But right now, Dad feels like a title I've been stripped of. 65 years old, retired structural engineer, and a man who's built more than just steel and concrete. I've built homes, bridges, bank accounts, reputations, and I built them to last. That house Emily just threatened me from? I didn't just watch it rise from the dirt, I anchored it. I poured its foundation in dollars and trust, knowing full well you can't have one without the other. Back in 2021, Austin's housing market was a frenzy, prices climbing so fast you could hear the wood studs creak under the weight of greed. Emily and Tyler Reed, my daughter, and her charming, job-hopping husband were desperate to buy before the door slammed shut. But desperation doesn't pay the bank. Emily's credit was solid enough, but her dental hygienist paycheck was a teaspoon trying to fill a swimming pool. Tyler's employment history had more gaps than a rotted picket fence. 2 jobs in 3 years, a credit score in the low 600s, and the swagger of a man who believed paperwork was for other people. They came to me. I had a rule: never co-sign for anyone. It wasn't just financial caution, it was self-preservation. But then Emily sat across from me at my own kitchen table, her eyes wide and pleading. It was the same look she had when she was 7, begging for ice cream before dinner, knowing full well she'd get it. "Please, Dad, we'll never miss a payment, I promise." And like the biggest fool in Texas, I signed. 3 years later, that promise is rotting in the shadow of $53,000 in gambling debt. Tyler's debt tied directly to the house I helped them buy. Poker sites, crypto ventures, NFTs so ridiculous they wouldn't fetch a nickel at a garage sale. I didn't have to dig to find it. The bank mailed the evidence straight to me by mistake. I didn't work 30 years of overtime just to watch some fast-talking parasite bleed my life's equity dry. My back still remembers those shifts, 12 hours bending over blueprints at the firm, then another 6 pouring concrete at the plant just to pay our own mortgage early. Emily used to sit on my lap as I filled out payment slips, running her finger over the numbers. She knew what sacrifice looked like. And now? Now she's guarding Tyler like he's the crown jewel of the family, telling me to stay out of our business. Our business! As if my name isn't sitting right there, in black ink on their loan documents. That's why I called David Carter. Not just a realtor, but a man who understands that in real estate, leverage isn't just financial, it's strategic. And I'm holding all of it. Tyler should be sweating bullets right now. He thinks I'm some harmless old man he can ignore, that I'll slink away after a few insults. He's forgotten that I've spent 40 years reading contracts, spotting the cracks in structures, and knowing exactly how to apply pressure until the whole damn thing comes down. This isn't just about a house anymore. It's about reminding them both brutally and without apology that when you sign your name next to mine, you're not just signing papers. You're entering into an unbreakable contract with a man who's never lost a fight over what's his. Tyler was easy to find. He was never the type to hide when he thought he was untouchable. Mid-morning on a Tuesday, I walked into the break room of the auto dealership where he handled accounts, a job title that sounded important until you saw what he actually did, which was avoid work while pitching his investment wisdom to whoever was unlucky enough to get cornered. He was half slouched in a chair, eyes glued to his phone, smirking at whatever fantasy he was selling himself that morning. That smirk froze when I dropped a thick manila folder on the table between us. "What's this?" he asked, his tone still cocky but his eyes flickering. Then the folder opened, spilling a stack of printed statements across the table, bank letters, loan documents, and gambling transactions that could have paid a year's mortgage without breaking a sweat. $53,000 in debt, I said, my voice as level as a plumb line. Tied directly to Emily's house. His jaw tightened, the color draining just enough to notice. "Where the hell did you get these?" "The bank sent them to my address by mistake," I said. "Happens when your name is still sitting next to mine on the loan paperwork." His eyes darted to the doorway, scanning for witnesses, the swagger leaking out of him by the second. "This doesn't concern you, Frank. It concerns me when my daughter's home is being used as a poker chip." I shot back, my voice low but razor sharp. "It concerns me when I see second mortgages and withdrawals from online casinos she's never heard of." "She knows," he said, but his voice had a crack in it. "Does she know about the loan against her $401K? The $15,000 credit line with her car as collateral? Or the $30,000 second mortgage?" He leaned back, arms crossed like he thought posture could rebuild his confidence. The grin returned, but it was hollow now, stretched too tight. "I handle my own affairs." "Not anymore, you don't." The vending machine hummed in the silence between us. I gathered the papers slowly, the way I used to roll up blueprints after a tense job site meeting, methodical, deliberate, final. "This is me giving you a chance to tell Emily yourself before I do." He barked out a laugh, short, bitter, a poor imitation of control. "You're not telling her a damn thing. You've hated me from the start. You'll say whatever it takes to break us up." I slid the last document into the folder. "I'm not trying to break you up. I'm trying to keep her from losing the roof over her head. She doesn't need your help." "Then you won't mind if I talk to her myself." I left him sitting there, coffee going cold, his little empire of lies starting to shake. That afternoon, Emily opened the door before I could knock. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk." She hesitated, then stepped aside. The living room smelled faintly of lavender candles and quiet panic. Tyler's gaming setup sprawled across the corner like an altar to wasted hours and easy money. "You want coffee?" she asked, moving toward the kitchen without looking at me. "This isn't a coffee kind of conversation." She froze mid-step, one hand gripping the doorway. "Okay, then just say it." I set the folder on the island and spread the pages out like evidence in a trial. Tyler's gambling debts, $53,000, secured against this house. Her face went from pale to flushed in seconds. "That's not possible." "It's all here," I said. $30,000 in a second mortgage, $15,000 from a home equity line, the rest on credit cards and poker sites. She shook her head hard enough to make her hair fall into her face. "These are fake. You made these up because you've never liked him." "Why would I make this up? Because you want to ruin my marriage?" "Oh, because I want to keep you from losing the house I helped you buy," I corrected. Her hands trembled, but her voice sharpened like glass. "We're fine. We make our payments. We've never been late." "Because you don't know about the other payments," I said, holding up the gambling transaction records. She covered her ears like a child. "Stop it. He loves me. He would never risk our home." I let out a slow, heavy breath. "Emily, don't call me that," she snapped, snatching her phone off the counter. "Get out. Get out right now, or I'll call the police." I looked at her, my only child, standing in a kitchen I'd partly paid for, defending a man who was hollowing out her future one bad bet at a time. "This is still my business," I said quietly. Not anymore, go. She lifted the phone higher. My chest tightened, but the anger I thought would come didn't. Something colder settled in its place. I gathered the papers, sliding them into the folder with the precision of a man sealing a blueprint before demolition day. If you want to lose your house that badly, I said, meeting her eyes, I'll make sure you do it quickly. And I walked out, my plan already forming step by calculated step. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the February sky had already started bleeding into that burnt orange haze you only get in Texas winters, a light that looks beautiful until you remember how cold it really is. My truck's engine ticked as it cooled, but my mind wasn't in the cab anymore. It was already inside my office, heading straight for the second drawer of the oak filing cabinet I bought back when a mortgage meant something. I didn't have to wonder what I was looking for. I could see it in my head like a blueprint, a thick manila folder labeled in my own blocky handwriting house. Emily. The file had been sitting there for 3 years, waiting quietly for the day I'd need it. That day had arrived. I flicked on the desk lamp. The warm glow hit the polished wood and the neat rows of alphabetized folders. I'd built my entire life on keeping things in order. Bridges, bank accounts, legal records. And now, that same discipline was going to be the wrecking ball Tyler never saw coming. The folder was heavier than I remembered. Inside, there was a paper trail of our shared history property tax statements, inspection reports, bank letters, every piece of correspondence since the day Emily and I sat in that loan officer's office. And then, tucked neatly toward the back, the original mortgage packet from 2021. 2 signatures stared back at me. Emily's, written in the careful, pretty script she'd had since she was 12, and mine the all-caps engineer's print I'd been using since high school, the one that made every letter look permanent. Above those signatures sat the section I'd barely glanced at 3 years ago, too busy thinking I was doing my daughter a favor. Co-applicant, Franklin Miller, joint and several liability for full loan amount. I read it once. Then again, and then my eyes locked on the sentence that made me sit back slowly, my pulse settling into something cold and deliberate. In the event of default, dispute, or financial distress, all co-applicants retain equal legal standing regarding any decision involving sale, refinance, or transfer of title. Equal standing. Tyler thought he could run this house like his personal casino fund without my say-so. Emily thought she could slam the door in my face and tell me it was their business. Wrong. Legally, it was our business. The memory-sharpened loan officer in a crisp blue blazer explaining the risks. You'll have the same rights and responsibilities as the primary borrower, she'd said. If there's refinancing, equity loans, even a sale, you'll have to sign off. I'd hesitated. Emily had squeezed my hand. Tyler had smirked, looking like a man who thought he'd just talked his way into free money. 3 years later, I finally realized the exact kind of power I'd put my name on. I grabbed my phone. First called David Carter. David, you still in the office? Sure am. What's up? I need a full market analysis on Emily's property. I want numbers, comps, the works today. Second call Mark Henderson, a property attorney I knew from the Rotary Club. Mark, quick question, I said. If one co-owner wants to sell but the other refuses, that's a partition action, he said without hesitation. You can petition the court to force a sale. Happens all the time in Texas. Why? I might be filing one. His tone sharpened. Frank, you going nuclear here? I'm protecting 30 years of sweat and equity from being flushed down a poker site. We set a meeting for the morning. I hung up, slid the folder back into its slot, and closed the drawer with a quiet finality. For the first time since Emily had stood in her kitchen telling me to get out, I felt something that almost resembled peace. This wouldn't be another screaming match, or a tug of war over emotions. This would be won in the same way I'd won every hard fight in my life on paper, with contracts, in front of people who respected the letter of the law. I wasn't just her father anymore. I was a co-owner, and I was about to make damn sure everyone remembered what that meant. Mark Henderson's office smelled of leather, coffee, and quiet authority. The heavy oak desk, the neat rows of law books, the framed black and white courthouse photos, it all radiated the kind of permanence I needed standing beside me. Mark slid on his reading glasses and began flipping through the mortgage packet. His eyes didn't just scan. They measured, calculated, confirmed. Frank, he said finally, you've got joint and several liability and co-ownership rights. That's as ironclad as it gets. If they've taken out any loans without your consent, it's not just shady, it's a direct violation of the agreement. What's our next step? I asked. My voice was steady, but my jaw was tight. A partition by sale petition, he replied without hesitation. We file in district court, list you and them as co-owners, and request a court-ordered sale. If they fight it, we go to a hearing. If they ignore it, you win by default. And until then? He leaned forward, his tone turning surgical. We file a lis pendens. That freezes the property. No refinancing, no new loans, no title transfers. Nothing moves without the court's say. So, I leaned back, letting that sink in. Do it. Mark tapped at his keyboard, the printer spitting out thick legal pages like the sound of a hammer driving nails. You understand, he said, sliding them toward me. Once we file, your relationship with Emily will change permanently. I thought about her in that kitchen, phone in hand, ready to call the police on me. That relationship is already gone. An hour later, I'd written the check for the filing fee, signed every page, and had a copy of the petition sitting in front of me. Mark tapped the stack. The clock starts when they're served. 2 days later, the knock came on Thursday morning at Emily's door, not mine. The process server, a tall man in a windbreaker, handed her a thick envelope. Tyler got his own copy at the dealership that afternoon, right in front of his coworkers. By Friday morning, my phone lit up like a slot machine jackpot. First, Emily's voice on voicemail. Dad, I don't understand these papers. Are you trying to sell our house? Then Tyler, what the hell is this? Some scare tactic? You think you can bully us? I didn't answer either one. By Saturday, the tone had shifted. Emily again quieter, shaky. We can work this out. Just talk to me, please. Then Tyler, in a text that reeked of bravado. No judge is going to side with you over family. Drop it before you regret it. I forwarded everything to Mark. His reply was short. Standard panic. Don't engage. 1 week later, the deadline came and went. No response from their side. Mark called. They didn't file. We move for default judgment. The court will order the sale. Just like that? I asked. Just like that, he said. They thought ignoring it would make it go away. They were wrong. I hung up and immediately called David Carter. We're listing the house. Fast sale pricing. Have buyers ready before the ink's dry on the order. David chuckled. Not wasting time, are you? 30 years of my work is on the line. Time's the one thing I don't waste. By Monday, David had a market analysis in my inbox and a photographer scheduled. Even priced to move, the sale would clear enough after debts to put close to 80 grand in my account. 80 grand Tyler would never touch. I could already picture his face when the papers came through, not because I shouted louder, but because I played the one card he didn't even know existed. That night, I sat at my desk. The petition, the mortgage packet, and the signed order from the court sat stacked in perfect alignment. Tyler had underestimated me from the moment we met. Emily had chosen to believe him over me. But here's the thing about a foundation built right. It doesn't collapse just because someone decides to ignore it. And soon, they'd find out that when you try to gamble away what's mine, I won't just fight you, I'll take the whole table. It started with a knock at Emily and Tyler's door on a windy Tuesday morning. Not the sheriff this time, an older man in khakis, clipboard in one hand, camera in the other. Court-appointed appraiser, he announced when Tyler opened the door. Here to measure, photograph, and document the property for the partition sale. By noon, my phone lit up with 2 new voicemails. The first was Emily, her voice already breaking before she got past the first word. Dad, a man came to the house today. He said it's for a court-ordered sale. He was taking pictures, measuring everything. The neighbors saw him. I don't know what's happening, but please call me. The second was Tyler, all venom and ego. You think this is funny, old man? Sending some stranger to snoop around my house? You're embarrassing us in front of the neighborhood. This ends now. I didn't replay either one. I deleted them without hesitation. That evening, David Carter called. Appraiser's done. Preliminary value is about $437,000. I'll have the full report filed with the court tomorrow. Perfect, I said, and meant it. By Wednesday, Emily's texts had shifted from confusion to pleading. Please talk to me. We can fix this. I can make Tyler stop. We'll pay you back somehow. Tyler's, meanwhile, still reeked of bravado. You don't want to see what happens if you keep pushing this. I ignored them both. Feelings didn't matter anymore. Facts and court orders did. By Friday, David had the listing photos ready. The house looked like something out of a home design magazine, sunlight spilling across polished countertops, the backyard lawn perfectly trimmed, even Tyler's sacred gaming corner stripped of its clutter to look buyer-friendly. 2 cash buyers already circling, David told me. No contingencies. Quick close. Forced sales move fast when there's equity on the table. That same afternoon, Tyler's tone finally cracked. His voicemail came quieter, stripped of its swagger. I talked to a lawyer. He says you can actually do this, that you can force us out. We waited too long to respond. Frank, just don't make us homeless. We'll figure something out. But I knew what figure something out meant in Tyler's world. It meant another loan against Emily's retirement, another lien on the house to cover his gambling losses, another fast slide toward disaster. This wasn't about making them homeless. This was about locking the vault before they drained it dry. The following week, David called with the numbers I'd been waiting for. We've got a strong offer, $425,000, all cash, 15-day close. After the mortgage, Tyler's debts, legal fees, and commissions, you'll walk with just over 78 grand. Take it, I said without a second thought. And just like that, Tyler and Emily's illusion shattered. This wasn't a family spat anymore. This wasn't something they could stall until I cooled off. The sale was in motion. The court had spoken. The clock was running out. For them, the panic was just beginning. For me, it was the first time in weeks I'd closed my eyes and slept straight through till morning. 3 days after David locked in the buyer, I drove by my old house to check the mail forwarding. Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor of 20 years, spotted me from across her driveway and waved me over. She was here, she said in a low voice, glancing toward my porch. Saturday there for almost an hour. Looked like she'd been crying. I didn't need her to say who she was. That evening, I found the note slid under my apartment door. Emily's handwriting, usually precise, like she measured each letter with a ruler, was shaky now. The ink smeared where her hand must have trembled. Dad, we found an apartment in Round Rock, but we need first and last month's rent, plus a security deposit. Tyler's credit is shot, and we can't get a loan. Please, I know you're angry, but we're going to be out in 3 weeks. I don't want to lose you over this. She'd signed it, your daughter, Emily. The words, your daughter, were underlined twice, as if the reminder of blood could erase years of bad decisions and one man's greed. 2 days later, I was in Mark Henderson's office signing the final sale paperwork when my phone lit up Tyler's name first, then Emily's, then Tyler's again. I ignored them all. By the time I walked out of that office, 5 new voicemails waited. Emily's voice came first, small but urgent. Dad, Tyler's gone to get boxes. We're packing. Please, can you help with the deposit? Just this once. Then Tyler's voice, stripped of swagger. Look, I messed up. I know I did. But we're your family. You don't have to do this. We'll pay you back. I sat in my truck, courthouse in full view through the windshield. Funny thing about court orders, they don't care how many voicemails you leave. Closing day. I wore the same navy suit I'd worn to Emily's wedding. Back then, I thought I was giving her a future. Today, I was making sure she still had one, even if she couldn't see it yet. The conference room was silent but tense, the kind of place where voices stay low and pen clicks sound like hammers. The buyer's attorney slid the stack of documents toward me. Proceeds to Franklin Miller, $78,437. Oh, I signed every line, each stroke of my pen another nail sealing Tyler's little empire shut. By noon, my phone buzzed with a notification deposit confirmed. 30 years of mortgage payments clawed back from the brink. That afternoon, Emily called one last time. I let it go to voicemail, then pressed play. Dad, we moved out yesterday. Tyler got a job in Dallas. I understand now about the money, about why you did this. I just wish it hadn't taken this for me to see it. I'm sorry. I hope one day you can forgive us. I love you. The message ended with a silence that lingered like a final exhale before the click. I saved it not because I wanted to listen again, but because someday I might need to remember exactly how it sounded when the wall finally cracked. Tyler never called again. No threats, no excuses, no fake deals. I pictured him hauling boxes down those steps, watching another family's moving truck back into the driveway, realizing probably for the first time that the house was never really his. The next morning, David texted me a photo, the bright red sold sign planted in the manicured front yard like a victory flag. It was done. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon and stepped onto my apartment balcony. 6 blocks away, the courthouse clock tower glowed against the darkening sky, steady, immovable, just like the decision I'd made. They had thought I was bluffing. They had thought family meant I'd never follow through. But in the end, it wasn't rage that carried me. It was something far colder, far stronger, like the steel beams I'd spent my life designing. A foundation you could trust. A foundation you could build on. A foundation you couldn't gamble away. 2 weeks after the closing, I signed the deed on my own new place, a corner condo in a quiet golf course community just outside Austin. The sales agent, a man about my age, said most of the residents were retired engineers, teachers, and small business owners. People who had saved with discipline, spent with caution, and knew the worth of a solid foundation because they'd built their lives on one. The condo wasn't large, but it didn't need to be. It was mine, paid in full. No loans, no co-signers, no one else's name sharing the title. Morning light flooded the living room, and in the evenings, I could stand on the balcony and watch golfers finish their last round, the air still and untroubled. I set my desk in the corner, slid my oak filing cabinet against the wall, and tucked the House Emily folder into the very back. That chapter wasn't just closed, it was sealed. Emily hasn't been here yet. I don't know when or if that will change. Her final voicemail is still in my phone, but I haven't pressed play again. Forgiveness doesn't run on a clock, and it sure as hell doesn't come by demand. As for Tyler, far as I know, he's still in Dallas, working that job he bragged about in his last message. Whether he's finally walked away from the tables, I couldn't care less. Because now, his risks don't touch my ledger. I've spent my entire life shoring up other people's bad beams, fixing what's broken, propping up what's about to fall. But there comes a point where you see the truth. You're not reinforcing a structure, you're holding it up entirely on your own. And that's when you step away and let gravity finish the job. This was never about revenge. It wasn't about humiliating my daughter. It was about defending the value of something I'd poured 30 years into, value measured not just in money, but in calloused hands, missed weekends, and principles I refused to mortgage. Because that's the thing about a foundation. Once you set it, it's meant to last. You don't drill holes in it to fund a bad night at the tables. You don't chip away at it for a quick hit of adrenaline. And you sure as hell don't hand it over to someone who never respected the sweat it took to create it. Now, when I stand on my balcony and watch the Texas sun bleed into the horizon, there's no guilt, no second guessing, just the cold, steady knowledge that I did exactly what had to be done. And my foundation? It's still solid because I refuse to let them bury it.